Pete, come on over. Peter King from the MMQB just checked into the man cave. Bring him over here. He had a late night. But we'll get to your phone calls as well. 877-3DP show. What do you think, Pete? Does it look like me? I have this. Now, that was from my Mardi Gras float. I had a float in New Orleans. Yeah, it's something. It doesn't. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's something. All right, sit down, Pete. All right. By the way, you had not been to a West Point game before,
Never.
I don't think, had you?
Never.
Yeah. How would you describe that?
Almost exactly the way you did. You just feel so good about the country after you leave there. And I felt like one of the great things that I never knew all those little traditions. You know, the parade as you come in. I'd heard about the parade.
Awesome.
I never saw it. I never knew the mules hung out there. I went and said hi to the mules. Raider, I think, was one of them. The coolest thing, I thought, is just sitting there and watching the cadets in the middle of this lost cause game. It wasn't a terrible game, though. No. You're right. In the middle of this lost cause game, they're standing for the whole game. They're into it. They're chanting. You know, it's like they're at Texas A&M, Alabama. They really care, you know, and I just, I loved it. I loved every second of it. You know what one of the coolest things was? I'm walking out of there. I went and spent some time with David Shaw after the game. And so I'm walking out of there, and there's a youth football game, maybe 10, 11-year-old kids out on the field. And they're running the triple option. I mean, I just thought, how perfect is this? This is football 2013, baby.
Those poor kids. Those poor kids. All right, let me start with Johnny Manziel with what you said last night on Football Night in America. Now, there were a lot of scouts, I'm sure, there because of the pro potential with both of those teams. The Manziel part of this is fascinating because, as Tony and Rodney said, you know, if I know what he's like off the field, then he's a top 5 pick.
Yep.
What did you glean from what the scout told you about Manziel?
Well, I mean, I talked to a couple of people who were at the game on Saturday, and look, I mentioned on Football Night last night that Ray Farmer, the assistant GM of the Browns, was there. He was one of 8 NFL scouts at the game, at least 8. Because sometimes at those games, people just go and they buy tickets. So the school doesn't even know that they're there because, anyway, some colleges allow scouts in the press box, some get them seats in the stands, whatever. But anyway, so Ray Farmer, for all I know, was there to watch the 8 other first-round draft picks, you know, who were going to be coming out. But obviously, the Cleveland Browns are looking at quarterbacks. They will look long and hard at every quarterback who even might come out this year. I mean, and think about this with Manziel. He could come out in 14, 15, or 16. He's just like Andrew Luck. When you redshirt early, you can come out as early as after your redshirt sophomore year. So, I mean, Andrew Luck could have come out any one of 3 years, and it's the same with Johnny Manziel. He could come out after his 3rd year in college, which is his redshirt sophomore year, which is this one, or he could play an additional 2 years, but it really doesn't sound like he's going to.
No, he can't stay there any longer. But I'm curious just how hot he is, and you do that to a Nick Saban defense.
Well, you know, this guy had 562 rushing receiving yards, or passing rushing yards against Nick Saban. Now, keep in mind, as one scout told me, he said, now, just remember this. Nick Saban has worked this whole offseason to figure out what to do with Johnny Manziel. I said, so what did he do? And he said, it looked to me like what he did was he shut down the middle of the field and the intermediate areas so that Manziel wouldn't be as free to run and he wouldn't be as free to gain a lot of yards on dump-off. So what did he do? He threw the ball deep. And he threw the ball very well deep. Now, he's lucky. He's got that receiver who's really good. But I found that I was watching the game, and I said, boy, this guy's got a better deep arm than I thought. And to me, I think all the people who say he can't do it, he can't make it, he's too small. I mean, did you watch Russell Wilson last night? He's an inch and a half shorter than Manziel. And obviously, Russell Wilson, as Scott Pioli said last night, has got something going for him that Manziel doesn't. Russell Wilson's an Eagle Scout. and Johnny Manziel is a live-on-the-edge college student. So, who, as the Manning Passing Academy proved, he's not the most reliable guy either. So we'll see what happens. I think I wrote this morning, there's 38 weeks to the draft, and there's a lot of drinking nights between now and then.
But I can't help but think of Favre when I see him.
I totally, totally agree. With the exception of the deep arm, he's Brett Favre. And Dan, people don't really remember that when Brett Favre was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons with, I think, the 35th pick overall in 1990, was it? 90 or 91. He was drafted early in the second round, right after Browning Nagel, by the way, Jets, or right before Browning Nagel, because remember, Ron Wolf worked for the New York Jets at the time, and he wanted badly Brett Favre, and the pick, or one or two picks before then, he was taken
out of Louisville. Browning Nagel,
Louisville.
Yeah.
But anyway, you got to remember Brett Favre's first year, he was the backup, demoted to third-string quarterback in Atlanta. He's a very heavy drinker, and he ballooned up to 248 pounds that year. He was not ready to play football, wasn't really into football, was a party guy in Atlanta, and got traded to Green Bay. He was still a party guy in Green Bay, but Ron Wolf and Mike Holmgren said this guy is going to play. And although he took probably 6 years off Mike Holmgren's life, he did end up being a player. But you're absolutely right. Brett Favre and Johnny Manziel were huge party boys, as kids and, as adolescents. So, and Favre ended up growing out of it. I sincerely hope that Manziel does the same thing.
The website is themmqb.com. It's Peter King staying with us. We'll have A.J. McCarron coming up in a little bit. Quarterbacks drafted before Brett Favre in 1991. Dan McGuire, San Diego State, Todd Marinovich.
Wow.
And then it was Favre, and then Browning Nagel. Once again, I don't know. Like, the game has evolved, but scouting has not, because you still can't look at a quarterback and say that guy's going to be successful.
I think so much of it is the guy as a person. Like, who knew that Jamarcus Russell, some people had suspicions about Jamarcus Russell basically taking the money and running.
Ryan Leaf.
I think Ryan Leaf Ryan Leaf to this day is the reason why people send private investigators to look at players. I'm not saying it started with him, but Ryan Leaf is the reason why. It might be the reason why Bobby Beathard doesn't make the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying he definitely would have, but I think he would have had a good chance to. But that was such a colossal mistake that, they got led on a trail by the people at Washington State.
So because of that draft pick, that could really be one of those black marks?
General managers, it's hard for them to make the Hall of Fame anyway. But when you end up taking Ryan Leaf, right after Manning in 98, and he ends up being one of the worst draft choices in NFL history, it's going to be on your record, just like all the good draft picks you picked in the middle rounds, too.
We spent a lot of time last night, pregame show, and then when we were filling during the rain delay, talking about RG3. And I thought Tony and Rodney had strong opinions about what do you do with him. This offense now is catered more towards Kirk Cousins than it is RG3. Should RG3 be playing right now for the Redskins?
I think he should be playing only if he can be assured, or if Washington can be assured that he's absolutely healthy and that he is not hesitating playing quarterback. Now, there are some thoughts that I heard after the Monday night game that Griffin has told the Shanahans that he really doesn't want to play that style of offense anymore. And I have to tell you, I was with Kyle Shanahan for a good bit of time. I wrote a long story on him right before the season started in June, and he was talking about how the offensive game plan was not really going to change because of Griffin's injury. So I'm not sure. I think what they're doing right now is that 2 weeks in a row, they have gotten out of their game plan early because they've been behind 31 points and 26 points just right after halftime. So, and Griffin has done a horrible job taking care of the ball. It's amazing to look at his numbers.
Yeah.
His numbers are not bad.
Yeah.
And his numbers are all basically frenetic, almost garbage time numbers when the game is totally out of hand. But I absolutely would not want to pull him yet. I want to see them play one more game against, I think they're playing Detroit this week. I want to see him play one more game, and I want to see him bring the full Monty. And if they're not going to play the read option, if they're not going to do any of that stuff, I think they have to just be public with it and just say, hey, we're doing something different. I don't think we're at that level yet. We're at that point yet.
The 2-0 team that's got some concerns, that stands out more than the other 2-0 teams.
New England. I'm not saying they're the worst 2-0 team, but what I am saying is you look at the way they have won these two games. I mean, they squeaked by Buffalo, and they, just a joke of a game against the Jets. Dan Shaughnessy wrote, I think on Friday, they're the worst 2-0 team in NFL history. I mean, that's a little silly because any team that has Tom Brady, Belichick, and a defense that's going to be in the top 12 or whatever, you're not a terrible team. You're just not. You're going to have to win games a lot different than you used to win them. I would worry about how long this perennially injured player, Danny Amendola, is going to be out because the Patriots need him desperately. I keep going back to Amendola and Danny Woodhead. Mike Reese wrote about it in his column this weekend, ESPN Boston. Thought it was a great point. I mean, are you telling me that Danny Woodhead wasn't worth 2 years, $3.5 million? How in the world, even if the Patriots were in perfect health right now, and Aaron Hernandez was a Boy Scout, how in the world is Danny Woodhead not worth $1.75 million a year with the 25 really good snaps he's going to play every game? I don't get some of their decisions at all.
More important for the Bengals or the Steelers tonight?
Much more important for the Steelers, in my opinion. I mean, it would be bad if the Bengals go 0-2, but the Bengals are a legitimate team, and I don't think that the Steelers are, when I say legitimate, a legitimate contender. I'd be very surprised if the Steelers contended with the weakness on their offensive line, with the problems in their running game. Who knows when they're going to see Le'Veon Bell, who, to me, he was one of the best rookies I saw in training camp this summer. He's desperately needed by the Steelers. But, the last time these two teams played, Geno Atkins and those guys really got after Ben Roethlisberger, and now Pouncey's gone. Fernando Velasco playing center. He's just met Ben Roethlisberger. He just met him 5 days ago.
Yeah, I'm going to have my hands on your butt. What's your name?
Hi,
Ben. Yeah.
And so, he's a pretty important guy in this game tonight.
Good to see you, Pete, as always.
Thank you, Dan.
How's the website?
Everything is going well. We're having a good time, doing a lot of good stories.
A lot of work.
Tomorrow, Greg Bedard writing a good story about Johnny Manziel and his pro prospects. So take a look for it. He was at the game on Saturday.
Well, give me a little tease here. Of what
I don't know because he went to the game.
It's your website.
Well,
don't you know?
I just talked to him. He said, hey, it went really well. I said, hey, good. Good luck writing the story. I don't know what's in it.
All right.
But I do know that he's got a couple of good things from Nick Saban, which he told me about, which is about all I know about it. But I think he'll do a good job. I really like Greg's stuff.
Saban said, you took 10 years off my life to Johnny Manziel after the game. That's good. Yeah, you could see where Saban just went, whew, I don't want to see this kid again.
He's got to pray that the guy comes out in the draft.
Oh, he's coming out. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way he's staying. He's Peter King. The website is the mmqb.com. A.J. McCarron, who went toe-to-toe with McCarron, will join us in 15 minutes from now. 5:30. Dan Patrick Show.
The Dan Patrick Show. Weekday mornings on Audience.